Hi freelancer, welcome to today's episode of the Freelance Blueprint. I'm your host Lisi, a freelance UX designer and digital nomad. Today we're joined by Gary. Gary has been in the motion graphic and visual effects industry for years, actually for decades. He's also a lecturer, helping students find their feet in the industry, and he's a fellow podcaster and one of the co-hosts of the Grafters podcast. In this episode, we're talking about how many different software tools Gary learned along his career, and that it's not about the tool you're using, it's about the skill set. We've also had a, let's call it, healthy discussion about AI. We both have quite different opinions about how it might affect the freelance and creative industry, so it was very interesting to discuss this topic with someone who comes from a different angle. So far, I've mainly interviewed people with a handful of years or a decade of experience, but having someone on the podcast who has had a whole career as a freelancer and seen how things have changed over the years was very insightful for me, and I hope it is for you too. Let's dive in. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Lisi.
Where are you calling from? You're in Manchester, right?
Yes, I'm just south of Manchester in a place called Derbyshire. Where I am, we're in the middle of the place called the Peak District. And it is...
Beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it is. It is.
If I didn't know anything about you, but I would meet John, who, for the listeners, is your co-host of your podcast, how would he describe you to me?
Recently, we have a Discord server as well. And the point of the Discord server is to help students to improve their skill sets. I spend time talking to the students and telling them where I think they're going wrong with certain things. And John describes me now as the person who Nodens people.
Nodens?
In other words,
oh,
yes, I Noden them because that's my surname. So I'm Nodening people now when I tell them, no, don't do that, do this. In John's eyes, I've become a bit of a self-fulfilling meme prophecy, I suppose. Which is not the best. But he would say I am friendly, committed, quite anti-AI. I don't know. He always describes me as being like a comfy armchair. I think that's probably the best thing.
That's a nice description.
I think.
Yeah.
I'm all nervous now as well, which is... I'm not normally nervous about anything.
Why? Why do you feel like you're nervous?
Well, it's because when I'm doing our podcast, when I'm talking about motion graphics and animation and the games industry and all these things that we discuss, I'm coming from a position of I'm in charge. And all of a sudden it's having someone else ask me questions about things. I'm trying not to be a fool, but I can't help it because the inner fool is on the outside most of the time.
How can you be a fool? Like, you have a lot of experience. You're even teaching students how to do what you're doing. You're not a fool. Also, it's recorded, so if there's anything, we can always cut it out and we can portray you in the best lighting.
The best lighting. Pitch black is the best lighting for me.
No.
There's a saying in the UK which is you've got a face for radio.
Harsh.
The point... I've forgotten where I was now. What was I saying?
Why are you nervous?
Yeah, just because I do. You're right. I've taught people in the past, and I still do a little bit of teaching now, and I'm trying to help them now as well. I'm still doing it as a career as well, and I do come across. I do have this. It's like there's a comedian that I kind of put on the front, but it's not put on. It's just who I am, and I don't like hiding it because there's no. I'm not a big fan of people who put on airs and graces and try and be something that they're not, because at the end of the day, you'll always be found out. So I am just the person that you see, and when I do things wrong, I'm the first person to put my hand up and say, did it wrong. So, I believe in being honest about things because I think it's the best way. I don't like it when people lie. One of the biggest problems I have with lying is when people lie on CVs. Because I think if you lie about what you... Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, a few years ago, there's a guy who I was working with. He hadn't long been graduated, and he said a few things that he said he could do. The person who I was doing the work for, said, "Right, we need to do this, this, and this." And I just watched the blood drain from this guy's face, and it was like, and you could see that he was immediately having difficulties because he didn't know what he was doing. And I do think that's a worry. I don't like it. I think lying on a CV, even though I've actually heard someone say, "Oh, don't put it on your CV anyway." And I'm like, no, don't put it on your CV. Because you will get found out. It's just not good.
It's such an interesting thing. I would not say put anything on your CV that you haven't done, but there is this common saying that with a lot of things in your career, whatever, fake it till you make it. I'm not saying put fake stuff on your CV, definitely not. But also sometimes just because you haven't done something doesn't mean that you can't. So for example, if you think of your students, for example, for them trying to get their first gig, they can probably say, I've done some visual effects. They probably didn't do a project with a massive movie or something along those lines, but they will have done some sort of visual effects. So they can put visual effects on their CV, even though they've not officially worked on that type of project or a grant project that the client might want to cover. And they will probably be able to improve their skills or Google stuff to get it to a specific outcome that they might want. I'm not saying oversell yourself. Be transparent with what you can and can't do. Be open with it. But I'm surprised that people still put stuff on their CV when I think it's so easy to be found out on that, yeah, mad.
Exactly. Yeah. Mind blown. It is. And as I say, these things, it doesn't happen quite so much, I don't think. But I do think the standard of students is getting better. But I think that's generally because the standard of the teaching is getting better. And I do mean that because there's a lot more people who are being taught, students particularly, who are being taught by people who work in the industry. And there's one particular university in the United Kingdom, and I'm going to name it because there's no shame at all with this. It's the University of Hertfordshire, and they get students who go in there. They're taught by professionals and ex-professionals, and so there's another one of these things, one of those little sayings, isn't it? If you can't teach, well, Hertfordshire is like, if you can teach, and that's kind of how the quality of the work that comes out of there. Give you an idea. There was a show that John and I went to, which was it's like a big hand waving ceremony. Basically, it's not like here's your degree, graduate, well done, thank you very much, throw your hat in the air. It's more like here's the work that you've done during the year. We're going to show it to everybody. We're going to so you can say, look what I did. And I sat there expecting it to be standard, university fare. And I was seeing stuff that was just way beyond anything that I've ever seen come out of university, ever. And this was like last summer? Yeah, last summer. And literally there was 5 representatives from the London office of ILM waiting to take these students and give them jobs. That's something that I have never seen before. So Hertfordshire, they've completely done this. They've fixed it. They've got it right. Absolutely 100%. The tutors are they're demanding a certain level of better teaching themselves. So sometimes there may be a teacher who's been pushed into one area. I'm going to teach this, but they're getting better training, and the students are therefore getting, better work coming out and jobs, which is nice, particularly at the moment because there's been. I don't know whether you've noticed anything happening. I mean, I know. Well, okay. I'm going to throw a question back at you. Have you noticed recently that there's not a lot of work around?
It depends on the industries. Well, you're doing special effects, I'm doing UX design, so there might be difficult at different stages among those, but there are definitely phases where it's more quiet, and there are phases where I get several messages from recruiters per week, maybe even per day. And at the moment, I noticed that things have been picking up because for me, I can always tell when one of my previous clients is asking, what is your availability like in X months or in X weeks from now? And then the next client asks and another client asks, and it's like, okay, it's picking up. I can already tell it's happening. People either got their budgets or something else is going on.
Yeah.
So January, February were quiet, and March has been picking up for me personally. What about you?
Yeah. Well, in the UK, it's been. I think I've a lot of people in the UK have noticed this. Is that round about the time that everything went up in the air in Ukraine, and then more recently, obviously, with what's been happening in the Middle East, with Israel and Palestine and everything, there's been this sort of like everyone hold back. Don't do a thing. Nobody do a thing. We're very concerned about how things are going. Governmentally, politically in the UK, things are not great. And the price of living is very expensive. And everyone's been like, no, we're not spending any money. And then there's been this that literally in the last 2 weeks, because there was a news report saying that the economy has grown by 0.02%. And it's like everyone's seeing an upturn. And the moment they start to see the upturn, everybody suddenly has money to throw at stuff. And it's this landscape has been, dominating. The political landscape has been dominating the industry. And then also the writer's strike last year, that absolutely literally all these projects were moving forwards and forwards, and then everything just went off a cliff, and there was nothing out there at all. So you have a lot of freelancers who are like going, well, what do I do? I've got no work. So they're looking for work in other areas, but then they're bleeding into the small indie freelancers, if you see what I mean, because there's big VFX freelancers, and there's people like me who do lots of little different things. So so I've got the motion graphics side that I do, and I've got I'm working with Unreal, and literally this morning I've been learning how to use Houdini's fluid simulation system for this little job that's going to happen hopefully in the middle of the year. So it's all of us, the people who were always just doing all this were suddenly scrabbling away with the rest of us at the bottom, and that's kind of that means that everyone's now fighting for this chum that's down here, and everyone's going, I can't get any work. And then all of a sudden, literally, it's like everyone. I got a WhatsApp message from one of my best friends who's a motion graphic artist, a guy called Jim Campbell. He is incredible. Jim, we're all the same. We all think we're worse than everybody else of all of our peers. But, Jim I think he's exceptional as a graphic artist. I really do. And he sent me a message on WhatsApp saying, it's over. It's over. It's suddenly getting better. Everybody's asking for me. And it was, and this is the thing. It just got this availability chart just went. And as you just said, are you available in June? Will you be available later on in the month? We need someone. And I had, yesterday, I had 2 people saying to me, are you available at the moment? We could do with someone starting, maybe possibly going into next week. And I'm like, yeah, I think I might be. Because it's you have to take everything as it comes, as you say. And you're right, January, always quiet, without a shadow of a doubt, always quiet. February normally is when it suddenly kicks in, I find. So yeah, I've never had I think it was 5 years ago, I had work every single month of one whole year. It was the best financial year I've ever had. And the work that I did was across so many different things. And I'm hoping just to, it's last year it was shocking. And I think it was shocking for everybody, which is why I asked if it was the same for you where you are, because obviously, you're quite a distance away from where I am.
It is still the English landscape. So my clients are in the UK, but I'm working from anywhere, but I work remotely. There were a few things that I wanted to fall back on. One of the things that you said was the imposter syndrome. I think especially for the listeners, and I've noticed this pattern with anyone who I talk to, especially when they're starting, but you've been in the freelancing field for a long time and you're still experiencing imposter syndrome. And also what you mentioned with your colleagues, that all of us think we are the worst amongst all of us. So I also think I'm not the best UX designer if I compare myself to other UX designers, things like that. And I wonder where it comes from, that we always think about the worst of ourselves, but then how you praise your colleague, the way you just did a couple minutes ago. And I always thought that maybe one day imposter syndrome will disappear. And then I was on a coaching call with Annelie Hansen, and she's been, I think, 30 years or something in branding and all this kind of world. In the group coaching call, she was talking about imposter. It's someone has been in the industry for 30 years still experiences imposter syndrome. You're still experiencing imposter syndrome. So do you have any tips also for the beginners, what looks like having this situation which will never end? How do you deal with imposter syndrome?
It's an interesting thing, isn't it, imposter syndrome? Because it shouldn't be something you have. I think mostly the reason why you get imposter syndrome is that you always feel that you never quite know enough in relation to the person who's next to you. That there's the old adage is basically the grass is always greener. And it is. My neighbour's front grass literally looks better than mine, and I know it does. But when I'm on his side of the garden, he says that his grass is worse than mine. So and I think imposter syndrome is kind of like that. When you're in a room and around people. I went back to full time for a short period of time for about 2 or 3 years. And a guy I was working with, a guy called David Sturzaker, he left I think just after I left. But he was, whilst he was working there, he always felt that he wasn't doing the right thing. And I would look across at David's stuff and I'd be like, dear God, man, that's amazing. And he has gone and he's working with another firm now. For the first time ever, he was showing them things of how to do things in Nuke. And they'd look at it and go, how'd you do that? That's brilliant. And he's never worked in a place where people have not been at the same level as him. So his imposter syndrome that he had when we were all basically working together, and the fact that I would look at Dave's stuff and say, that's fantastic. He's in a situation now where he's a bit more respected, and he's been working on Doctor Who, and it's like,
Wow.
And he can't tell me anything about it. And I'll say, what have you been working on? And he goes, I can't tell you. I said, are you enjoying it? He goes, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I said, have you still got your imposter syndrome? He goes, oh yeah, totally. I mean, I see some of the things these guys are creating and they're amazing. I can't do that. And I'm looking at stuff that Dave's done, and of course he can do that, which means that the imposter syndrome, it never goes away. I've been doing this over 30 years. In about 3 weeks' time, what time? What's it? 3 weeks' time, I'm going to be 54. Now, I know full well that every time I sit in front of a keyboard, I'm always trying to do better than I've done before. Because the moment you think that you've attained perfect knowledge, and the moment you think, I've done it, I've reached this level, I'm done. No, you are done. Because if you think you're brilliant, you might as well just get out of the industry. So imposter syndrome, as horrible as it is one of the best motivators to get you to carry on and get better at what you do. And the more you have that imposter syndrome, embrace it. I need to know more. I'm going to learn more. I need to be able to do this, and I'm going to go and do it. It's like taking out the recycling. It's the job. It's one of those jobs. You don't enjoy doing it. But by God, once you've done it, you're so glad it's done. And that's a lot like everything. Everything is taking out the garbage. So imposter syndrome, no, you can't. No one can get rid of it. Doesn't matter how amazing you are. There's a guy called Hugo Guerra, who's probably one of the best nuke specialists out there. He does masterclasses and he's got a fantastic YouTube channel. He does all these courses and all sorts. And I'm sure Hugo has mornings where he sort of like wakes up and goes, oh, God, I saw something today and that guy's great. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Pull it together, Hugo. And then he goes out there and does the amazing stuff that he does. And I think that's it. Imposter syndrome is imperative. So just embrace it. It's the only thing anyone can do. So there you go. That's my take on that.
I wish it would go away, but yeah, every now and then you have to take out that recycling and then start again because you realize there's another thing that you have no idea about.
Because underneath that big tub of recycling is another tub of recycling. Okay?
Yes, it never ends. It's like nature. It keeps adding up, and you just have to keep cleaning it out. The other thing we were talking about was AI. How do you feel that AI has impacted the visual effects industry?
Quite a bit. I think everyone started off thinking it was this some sort of like, the solution to everything, the quickest way to get to the end point, which is part of the reason why there's been so much more development. People are constantly developing. It went from, what was the first one? I think it wasn't Midjourney. Oh no, I think we had ChatGPT first. I think that was the first thing about, which is just for how do I do this? I want to program this. And then Midjourney appeared. And then I think there was another one as well. And obviously they've gotten better because the AI is getting more intelligent, for want of a better word. And the programming of that is getting better, and the way things work is getting better. And now then there's Runway, and then you look around, and before you realize it, there's this huge, massive sphere of like Leonardo and Crea and all these little packages that sit in a browser, and anyone can get 150 points a day or whatever it is on certain ones, and use them all up within 15 minutes and go, I've got nothing. But then there's other people who can spend 15 minutes with AI and get the right sort of text-based stuff in there to be able to then adapt and then, take that one image and push that through again and say, give me 4 variations of this. So my opinion of AI has changed dramatically. So my initial thoughts were, this is terrible. This is the worst thing in the world. I am going to lose a job. And there have been a couple of occasions where people have lost work. I think there's one that's quite. I think it was on LinkedIn and a few other places, where a guy was working for a games firm, and him and another person basically went from animating characters to making AI text things to make a character animate. And he didn't want to do that. And then they said, well, we can't employ you. And the other guy was there. He basically, it was like a swan. Oh, yes, I'm gliding through this, whereas underneath his feet are doing this, trying to catch up. I've got to get this stuff to work. So he basically obviously got a career using AI so he can work with it. And that's the key thing here, is that it's not going away. It's like a nuclear warhead. They're always going to be around now. It just blows up the industry. But it's there, but it's about how we use it. For example, I've been using Leonardo recently. I've been trying to get my head around, how can I use this in a much more sensible way? And I've got one of the guys who's one of the admins as well on the Discord server. His name's Tim, and he uses Midjourney, and he does beautiful things with it. But he knows that this is a starting point. So it's kind of like, well, you usually use AI. Let's use it to say, right, well, if the height of this screen that you're looking at right now, if the height of this is sort of like, here's where the finished piece of work is, where does the AI stop? And it's got to stop about there, about a quarter of the way through the beginning of the process. So it's like, I'm going to throw ideas at the wall and see what sticks. And then when it gets to that point where that's all stuck, that's fine. I've done a lot of stuff with AI, looking at different things and saying, put the same text in, slight variations. And then you look at everything that it's created and gone, okay, this is reference only. And that's it. And that way you can use AI and get some staggeringly amazing stuff that you possibly wouldn't have thought of yourself. And then you go, right, okay, that's brilliant. Now I'm going to take it further. And that's how we need to use AI. And then maybe somewhere in here, particularly with animation, there's, digital sort of systems. When you do animation, 3D animation, you have, rigs and you do poses, and it's like when you're drawing animation, you'll do set poses and then you'll space them to get the timing right, and then you'll do the in-betweening. Now, in-betweening has always been done by people. And then when 3D began, they were like, oh, my jobs are gone. They'll have no work in the industry. And in the end, they're still in between. They still do all this sort of stuff and help to get that sort of motion from one place to the next during the spacing to get it absolutely right. AI will probably end up removing that part of the industry, but it still won't have that nuance that you get with an animator. So it's just going to be a help. It's going to be an aid. But I just realized that on my screen, I can just see the tip of my finger just going up and down by the side of my ear. It's going to end up doing some stuff. I still don't particularly like it, but at the same time, I can see the uses of it, but it just needs to never reach this point of the project. It's got to be down here and no higher. And that's how I feel about AI.
I think it's so interesting to see different people's opinions about it.
Don't say but.
Yeah. But there's always been, especially in the last 100 years, so many changes. Not too long ago, when I grew up, people were like, oh, if you put children in front of the TV the whole time, they're going to end up being stupid, things like that. My dad's generation, it was, when you put them in front of the radio all the time, they're not going to go to the playground. And of course, things have changed. You do see children being on the phone instead of running around on the playground. Like, I'm not saying this didn't happen, but also technology has always been an aid to things. There's always a good and a bad. But what I like to compare AI with, and generally technology, and when new things come what people are often scared of, is when you think of editing films. Back then, you had a film roll. You had to manually cut that thing. You had to glue it back together, wait for the glue to get stable again, that you can put it through the projector without it ripping. This whole process took forever. And then they digitalized it. Now, editing can happen within seconds. There's apps on the phone. You can do it directly on Instagram, on YouTube. Creating even a 7-second reel for a YouTube short or a TikTok, Instagram reel, whatever it is, before would have taken forever, and now it takes you a short amount of time. And the way I see AI is just another tool to fast track your process. And it can be, in a way, and that's what I think why many people are a bit scared, it's the creativity part. creating this character, making it move in a certain way. And if AI takes up too much of that, it kind of loses that. And if it's all a generic pool that it feeds from, all the things will start to look the same. But that's when I also think the human comes in to create something more interesting out of it. And also it allows you to be the art director, not just the person executing things, because the stuff that maybe you wouldn't have been able to execute, AI can now do. And now you can direct the whole thing a little bit more. That's how I see it.
Going back to what you were just saying there about the editing, I think, the technological shift there was wonderful because it allowed a lot of time saving. But the creative nature of it never changed, because the decisions were still made by the same people who made the decisions with, original, sort of like, the original film. You're right, but you cut something out of that original film, you throw it on the floor, you've got to find it to put it back in. Whereas at least if it's digital, it's not properly cut. And it's not really, but it just means so you can do things quicker. But the actual creativity, the actual creative decisions were always coming from the same person who did that. Whereas now with AI, those creative decisions, I mean, I don't feel, and I'm praying that it doesn't ever, but I don't feel that AI is capable of having that, that creative spark that a human being has, because that's a sign of pure intelligence, and no, that's different to artificial intelligence. So that spark will never be there. For example, there was a small piece of AI stuff that had been done recently, and it wasn't with Runway, it was with something else. And it was like an alien head on a guy walking around in a circle pretty much between a bunch of streets in New York. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like a blue alien face. He's got a hat on, he's wearing a shirt, and he's just walking. And as he walks past people, there are people, and they're all, everything, the background is all blurring, which is great. Saves a multitude of sins. And there's a guys who are turning and looking at this guy, looking at this blue alien thing. And, there's one guy who walks behind him, and then there's suddenly two guys as they go the other side, and the buildings, and it feels like he's literally not walking along a road, which is how I guess it was kind of meant to be. It actually just looks like this guy is just walking in a circle. Imagine a square, right? Yeah, street, and it looks like he's walking like this, which you just don't do, because you'll get run over by a car, especially when you can see cars that are going left and right. So it's, it just doesn't happen. But there are people who are appearing out of the sides of people. It's just not got that intelligence to be able to do this properly, and I hope it never does.
Well, it might do it. Like you say, it keeps getting smarter, but I'm not sure if it will.
Not on my time. Not on my watch.
You never know. It generates intelligence. It teaches itself, and the way it teaches it, it's I think for us normal humans, very difficult to understand how it works. Even for the people who understand technology, who code, etc., they can't really grasp in what multiplying factor it learns. But the thing with creativity, and I'm not saying humans are not creative, but there hasn't really been anything new under the sun, is what they say. And when we think we are creative, it's our brain taking what it already knows and linking several things together. And it's not that we're creating something completely new, that like fire or discovering something. You kind of make different variations of something we've seen in another form or another. And I do believe that AI might be able to get to that point, because our brain creates those things when we don't think, like when we shower, when our brain basically rests, or when we do some mundane tasks that we do all the time. That's when people get their ideas. And I do believe that AI, who knows when, but I do think it will come to that point where it can create things for you, which will be scary, because then you can really replace humans. But people will tell me I'm too, how do you say, when you believe too much into the good stuff, idealistic, or
living a lie,
or more kind of I don't know what the word is. Anyway,
I can't think of it either, but it means that you constantly look at the positive, you never look at the negative.
Yes.
But there's always going to be good things that come out of this, and there's someone at the back saying, "You fool! The robots are behind you. Don't do it."
Too late. I'm feeding AI right now.
We've fed, but we're all feeding AI all the time. But one of the points that you made, which I think is a very important point, is that when you use AI, you're generating stuff with the AI that then goes back to the AI, and so it kind of becomes this little ball of everything looks exactly the same. How do you get creative with that? But you can't, if you give it ultimate access to everything, that's the thing that you don't want to do. It's a dichotomy, isn't it? It's a difficult thing to understand until you're actually faced with this thing. And I mean, one of the guys who created AI recently said, no, we've got to stop it from being involved in all this stuff. It's like, okay, thank you for setting up this time bomb that's ticking away at our jobs.
Well,
but I still feel that there's, even though, as you said, there's going to be a time when it's going to be able to do all sorts of things. Absolutely, it will be. But hopefully, it'll be a little bit longer than give it 15 years, please. Can I just retire? Can I just get to the point where I can retire?
In my ideal, who knows if it's going to be realistic or not, but in my ideal scenario, I hope that because AI does so much stuff, people will hopefully still get a decent income, but just not having to be forced to work 40-hour weeks anymore. Because if you think of it, the amount of time it saves you, if we earn the same amount of money by doing less work, please come, AI, do this work for me. Replace me or replace some of my tasks. So instead of me having to sit in the office 9 to 5, I can sit in the office any 2 hours I want to, create some prompts, and then it will run its thing, do its thing, and I can chill the rest of the day. And the production will be just as much, or maybe even more. Hopefully no errors. But that's also an opportunity where people always think it's going to be the worst case scenario. Maybe that's the best case. Maybe the best case scenario is the whole world will run itself and we can just chill by the beach and enjoy life. It will be something in the middle.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I think the most important point there is I think you need to take off your rose-tinted spectacles. I believe that's what you were trying to say before.
That's what I mean. Yeah, people say it's too idealistic.
Yeah. It's great. Well, it just means I can work less hours and get paid the same amount of money. But the company you work for have realised the AI does everything, and you don't have to do anything with that person, so they can get rid of that person because it costs them nothing.
Well, that.
Sorry.
But then also, well, that depends what governments you have, and I'm not going to get too political now. But
no, let's not do that.
But if there is good leadership, because the companies will generate more revenue, the government should tax those, and that tax money should then go back to the people. And then I don't know what the English word is for that, but like a minimum base income for everyone, even if they're not
minimum
working.
Wage.
Not really a wage, like even you know this thing that I mean. I don't know the proper term for it, but where basically everyone gets paid.
No,
I know
amount. Exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and if that would be generated,
they did a test, didn't they?
Yes, and it's going really well.
Is it in Sweden or somewhere?
I don't know where they do that, but it's that, and it's also the 30-hour week. There have been so many tests and trials. All the results show the same thing, and still it's not being implemented. Why?
Yes.
People were happier. People produced more. People had more free time. Yeah.
But the reason why it's not happening everywhere is because there's so many people who basically are greedy, and they run businesses, and they run massive, they run governments basically. And, I mean, as I said, I don't want to get political. Nobody wants to get political because it's just not safe to do it, especially if your voice is going out somewhere. But it is that fact. It's just the thing that stops everyone from having a really nice life where everyone could have, I means I can do the job that I do and I'll do it well, and everyone will have a base amount of money. It means that all these big people with all this money at the top can't have it, and that's where it all ends with them.
Capitalism.
The people with all the money. Yes, capitalism, exactly. Yeah, I'm not pro or anti-capitalism. I just want to be able to pay my bills and make sure that students get the right level of teaching and skill sets put in place so that when they finish their degree, they've got the belief that they can get a job, that they are humble about what they've done, they are happy to learn, and that they're capable of walking into a place and just doing a job. Just doing a job. I know I can do this, so I'm going to be able to do it. That'd be nice.
But then maybe they don't want to do a job. Maybe they just want to do it as a hobby. Like now we go for a run or we read a book as a hobby, not having to turn a passion into an income stream and then starting to hate your passion because you just do it for work. You don't do it for passion anymore. But again,
Yeah.
too idealistic here.
You're an idealist, absolutely. But that's why the word is ideal, because it would be ideal if I could, if I didn't have a mortgage and didn't have bills to pay. It'd be lovely to be able to be out in the garden right now and not actually. I mean, I'm really enjoying being here, so this is perfect. But you know what I mean. Just to be able to actually work. You're right. I mean, a 30-hour week. In fact, on that, there's a company called Tracks and Layers who are in Manchester, and I didn't realize. I was just looking into them recently, and it's a motion graphics company, and they do some 3D stuff as well. And they'd be perfect to give me work, in fact. But they have a 4-day week, but they have 5 days during the week when they work, but it's not work. They work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday is a learn, share, and restore. Learn, share, restore, or relax or something. Basically, they have so you work on everybody else's projects for 4 days, and then on the Friday, you either go off and learn something new about the software in the company that you work for and the industry you work in, learn something which is going to be an advancement for you, one whole day. Or you share knowledge about something that you're either into or share knowledge about something that you have learned on one of your learn days. Or the third option, which is where they go out and they just as a team just go out and build, team building, bonding, go for walks, go bowling. Spend time outside together as a group. And I have never heard anything so wonderful in my life as that. And I think that what I would love is if every company did that. Because I've seen these guys from Tracks and Layers out in the real world as well. They all look lovely. They all look happy. They look very healthy. And they just are nice people. And you think, well, obviously, because they've got it right. They've got it right. It's a great work ethic. It's a great work ethos. Work really hard and do great work on 4 days, rather than having those mornings sometimes where you get up and go,
I mean, these mornings still happen, even as a freelancer. Like for me personally, the reason why I started freelancing is so that I can create my work life, not having it depend on other people deciding what I can and can't do. Is there anything that you do since you started freelancing where you set those boundaries, like for example a Friday which you contribute to working on your business or passion projects or teaching? Is there anything that you put into your own business, your own work life since you started freelancing?
I mean, yes. I mean, one of the best things about it is that level of flexibility. So, for example, in the previous incarnation before I went full time for that 3 years, it was like 10 years of working as a freelancer. And I found that during the course of doing that work, I was able to I need to go and do something now for an hour. I'm not working in an office. I'm working at home. So I know that I can, and I'm very stringent with my hours. So I'll do proper office hours when I'm freelancing, but I don't necessarily do them within proper office hours. So I can say, right, well, here's where I'd normally have lunch. So I'm going to shift that forwards, and I'm going to go here and pick up the bricks and the wood and whatever I need and bring them back and put them where I need them, and then go back to work. And then occasionally I'll eat in front of the computer, but I try my best to not do that because it is one of the worst things you can do.
Yeah.
You need to have a proper plate. You need to go and sit down at a breakfast bar at a table, or even just go out and say, right, come on, let's go. Because my wife works remotely, or partly remotely. She's actually not here right now. She's actually in the office. But she sits next to me, working completely different industries. And we sit here and we joke about, oh, hi there, how you doing? Nice day. Oh, good weather, isn't it? Like we're in a real office. And then Alex finishes before me. So she'll go, bye, see you tomorrow. And I'll go, see you. Of course, it's just the other side of the door is the house, So, but there is that kind of ability to just be able to go, yes, I'm going to go and do this now and come back. And then I'll carry on working. But then I'm going to go and have some food. But that means that's another 15 minutes out of the day that someone's paying me for. So I'll put that 15 minutes in later. So that wonderful flexibility there, but still keeping it within like an office structure. I do love that. So I'll be able to, and also I love being a member of Costco, which is, I don't know whether you've heard of Costco.
Yes.
Yeah. So there is those kind of, obviously there's the pluses there. The biggest thing I found when I've been freelancing is that I have learnt more about software and myself, and probably reduced the imposter syndrome a tiny bit.
Good.
Because of having a little bit. You can't get rid of it. Sorry, you just can't. But just there's a level of advancement because you realise that in order to do the job, you probably do know one way of doing it, and you can probably say, right, I can do this. I know I can do it. But I've heard there's a method that's similar to the one I've used, but it's slightly newer, maybe a little bit quicker. And so even though I know I can do it, I know I can definitely do it. There's no complete brain fog, having no knowledge of it. I know I can do it. And I also know I can fudge it. And that's another thing about fudging it is like, no, I know there's a way that I can do it that is, it'll take a little bit more laborious, but it's like, it'll take me a day to do something that basically if I did all the maths, it'll take me 2 days to learn it. I'm wasting another day. I can't afford to waste a day, so I'm just going to do it this way. But then when I get the chance, I will go and learn that other method. Or if I find that I can do it and it's not going to take me too long, then I will learn that method. It's like this morning, I've been like neck deep in fluid simulations with Houdini, and I've done some Houdini stuff in the past, but recently I've been doing it with Unreal. So I've been learning Unreal and I've been learning Houdini at the same time. So I'm learning on the job things because I need to know them in order to, but it's not all of it. It's just the section that I need. But I'm lucky there's still enough brain capacity that I can keep this stuff in there, which is nice. So I can turn around and someone says to me, so do you know, how do you make sure that you get proper collisions in a dot network inside of Houdini? I can go, I know how to do that. And that's that learning on the job because you have to, just because you have to with freelancing. That's an incredible thing. I've learned so much more about what I'm capable of as well as what I can do. So I've done a lot more editing. I've done a lot of sound recording. I've done a lot more of this, a lot of guide audio while I'm doing my visual effects or like for motion graphics projects, so you learn how to do stuff. Someone said to me, can you make a sting for this title graphic? And I went, I think so. Yeah, all right. I had to buy myself a tiny little keyboard. So I did, and it's literally like a da 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 da, and it's nothing. It's just five chords that are basically harmonics, and it's just dun, 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 and it's like, that's brilliant, thanks. And I'm like, am I now a musician? Why am I doing all of this stuff? What am I doing?
You can put that on your CV now.
I know. I'm a fully fledged musician. Yeah. And then the next thing I know, it's like, we need you to conduct an orchestra. I can do that. No. But you do find, I mean, like you, I know everybody. So I can definitely say that you have been doing UX stuff. And, and the concept of it still being called UX, I think we spoke of this before. The term UX is relatively new. So this web design thing that I'm doing, is that UX or is that web design? I don't know. Is it? Yeah, it's the same thing, but it's a much more defined thing, which is why it's user experience. It's still a big part of web development, but it's and I've had to learn lots of things about this in order to get here to know that this is my niche. This is what I'm really good at. I can still do this other stuff, but I know that this is what I'm great at, which you obviously are. By the way, I've seen some of your stuff. I was very nosy. Oh no, I was very nosy. I had a damn good look.
Well, the thing is, my portfolio is a couple of years old and I've not updated it. So, but I'm happy that it still impressed you because in my eyes, like, oh my God, what did I design? This I would do differently. I would do that differently. But on the
there it is.
The imposter syndrome. Oh my God.
It makes you better.
It does make you better, yeah. But also I still need to update my portfolio. But in the last 30 years that you've been working, you keep learning new skills. You constantly have to stay updated. Like you mentioned now, you're learning Houdini or like the other tools. And how do you keep, how do I phrase that question? How do you stay motivated when you know that maybe that skill that took you a long time to learn might be replaced by a new software, different technology, might be replaced with AI, whatever it might be? How do you motivate yourself to continue learning something new?
For me personally, learning is a big part of me, and it's a big part of what I do. And I think that I've never found a piece of software that I didn't want to learn. I think that's what it is. And also, again, it's like even software-wise, the grass is greener. So you look at things and you go, but I can do this in that. I know I can do it in here, but it looks better because it's been done in this one. But Maya's wonderful. Yes, Maya is, but Blender's free. And, and you sort of like, and you start to see this kind of like, in that case, it's like, well, okay, well, I'll just learn it anyway. I'll still keep this skill, but I'm going to learn that one too. And it's like Blender is, I love Blender. It's a fantastic piece of 3D software. It's developing so quickly. And you think, oh my God, they put it in geometry nodes. And I was like, this is brilliant. This is like mini Houdini inside of Blender. This is great. We want more of this. So I learned how to use it. And then they changed the entire math system, and they put in fields, and they put in all this. I'm just like, okay, right. I'm going to put a pause on learning this just at this section. But I will come back to it. And I think because you always, but for me, learning is imperative. If I didn't have software to learn, I don't know where I'd be. But I think it's very important to, I do know someone actually, whose name I'm not going to mention because I hate him. No, because he said, I can't be bothered with learning this when I can just do all this in Maya. Why do I want to learn to do it in something else? And I was like, because it's not about the software. It's about the skill set. It's like, and I'll use Maya and Blender again as a descriptor here. Blender's been around for what, 10 years now? And when it first started, it was actually it's longer than 10 years. But when it first started, it was, it didn't use the left button click, it was a right button click. And everyone was like saying, oh, this is just too technical, I can't face it, push it away. To becoming this thing which everybody is saying, if you want to learn modeling, just use Blender because it's free and it's fantastic. And, it's, if you could use Cinema 4D, or you can use Maya, or you can use 3ds Max, you can use this now. And there's so much, there's a massive community of people who are heavily involved in the software. So if you turn around and you think, I can't do this, what do I do? You Google it. If you try and do that with Autodesk, you go to their help system that they have, which is paid for by your license and your costing you money. You don't get that same feedback that you get from Google, from a bunch of people who are using free software. And so, you can't say, I don't want to learn this when I can use this. Because what will happen is that the software that you're using will start to get pushed to the side like that. And the software that you're not learning will sort of like slowly engulf you and push you into a corner. And because you're keeping your hands like this rather than in it, you're not prepared for when it happens. And I'm only using Blender as an example, but it's like Houdini. Houdini is this thing that's just crept up. It's been around for years. I remember when I was working in London, about 22 years ago it was, some representatives of side effects, I think it was still side effects then, came into the office and they were showing us how you use Houdini. And we were like, oh yeah, that's really good. Yeah, that's really nice. I don't think it's going to work with our pipeline. And now, everyone, every single VFX jobs, Maya essential, Houdini essential. And then at the back, Blender would also be quite useful. And it's like, okay, so, the first one's Maya, but the other one's like, this is really, we're going to do flames, and we want to do water simulations, and we want to do, massive like buildings blowing up. Yeah, you have to use Houdini because it's the only way you can do it now, because it can deal with the amount of data that the other software can't. So you've got to make that leap, and making it in small stages. It's like don't try and jump up a flight of stairs. Take it one step at a time, and you'll be okay. I must write that down. Oh, you just recorded it. I like that. One step at a time. I mean,
I'll send you the snippet.
You can get a transcript out of Riverside. Send me the transcript.
I will do. I also remember the last time we had the conversation, and we touched on that briefly, and I'm trying to make it go back to that. And I remember when we talked about it, you said what you want people to know when they start freelancing, that there will be this phase where there are no clients, where you're going to think, oh my God, why did I do this? What's going to happen? This is going to fail. Do you have any guidance, any tips for people who might be in that situation right now? Anything that helps them to maybe get out of that situation?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. What the one which is kind of analogous to that situation, I think when you leave education, you've done your higher education, you've graduated, and you want to get a job. Back in 1992, when I graduated, I'm so old. Back in 1992, when I graduated, I couldn't get a job for love nor money. 2 years it was that I worked in pubs. I was about to hang up my 3D boots, basically. And remember, at that stage, it wasn't like I had a computer at home under my desk that was running a 3D software. I literally had stepped away from the whole thing. I couldn't carry on doing even any test work, nothing. And I was about to jack it all in and go onto a management program at a at a beer company, trained to be a full-time publican, because I've been working in pubs since I was like 14, and I just thought that's it. And then this job appeared out of nowhere, and I thought, well, I'm going to apply for it. And basically, it was a chance in a million that I just happened to have. I was in the right place for one thing. I could easily commute to it. It was just there. So the analogy I wanted to get to, referring to that, because when I got that job, it was like, this is great. It was awful, but it was still that step in the right direction. The analogy I wanted to get to is that if you are coming out in the industry today, think of it in terms of an actor. Actors go through the whole of their education, coming out the other side, knowing full well that they will be working in some other industry for the next few years until they get that big break. And you can keep on acting because it costs you nothing. You can just join a little theatre amateur group or whatever. So you keep on doing stuff. You keep busy, but you have a main job which is earning you money, even if you are living at home or sharing flat with friends or whatever, whilst you are still trying to do a bit more of stuff with your skill, trying to get yourself better and better and better. And then keep on going and knocking on doors and stuff. So that's kind of the career mindset that you've got to have if you want to be a freelancer, or even just to get a job full time. It's not going to happen straight away. It just isn't. So don't come out expecting to go straight into a job. Not everybody can get into the University of Hertfordshire, for one thing. But even some of those guys who are at the University of Hertfordshire, they won't have gone straight to ILM, or they will have gone to, not so much LucasArts, but other games companies, the games companies who want people to do background arts or concept work or all this wonderful stuff. So it's a big market. There are always more people than there are jobs. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but keep at it. Keep at it. Make sure that you have got access to a computer at home, that you have got access to software. This is why things like Blender are so important, because you can do our modeling that looks great. Because if someone's going to look at it, they're not going to look at the software, really. They may ask you what the software is later, but if you create an amazing, okay, I'm going to go there, spaceship, I'm sorry, it's a trope, it's such a terrible trope, but if you create in 3D an amazing spaceship, and you look at it and go, oh, it's another bloody spaceship. But sometimes I look at it and go, oh, wow, look at the detail there. And they put that there. And that's brilliant, because it would have that. There's the little holes there where the feet would go. That would be there. They've put it in. They've got attention to detail. They've looked at it and gone, right, this guy's great. Let's get them in. This is what you need to be doing. You need to constantly keep honing your skills, which you can do for nothing practically, and then you'll get a job. And particularly, actually Blender's really good, because a lot of games firms, particularly the smaller ones, they're not spending money on software when they can spend money on good people. Mm-hmm. So if you already know Blender and you're really good at it and you've been using it, in earnest, and you can see you've got a load of stuff on ArtStation, or you've got it on Behance, you've got it wherever you want. You've got a platform of all of your stuff out there for people to see. Someone will, obviously you've got to promote yourself, but some people will see it, So just keep doing it, because it's a tough world. It's a tough world out there. Do you remember your first days?
Oh, yes. I actually want to ask you,
how were they?
You mean my freelance days or my work days out of uni?
Both.
My freelance days, I was incredibly lucky that I was hired by someone who used to be a freelancer, and she told me things that, oh, you forgot your company number in the invoice and things like that, without embarrassing me, but still guiding me through it. And she always gave me something that I needed at the stage where I was at. So if someone would have told me up front, oh, you need an invoice to show X, Y, and Z, I probably wouldn't have taken notes or whatever. I'll get to it when I get to it. Whereas she was there guiding me through when I needed it. So that was great. Freelancing also has its up and downs, of course. And then that company lost their investors, or they pulled out for whatever reason. So it's this whole like, oh, I thought I have this gig. What's going to happen now? And after university, I was struggling a lot to find a job. So I was studying in Austria, just did my A-levels there, and then actually went to film school and did a little bit of playing around with Cinema 4D. But yeah, I ended up in a corporate, like not even a corporate job, and as a cashier somewhere. And wasted a lot of time there, and then kind of kicked my butt to have a change in my career and ended up studying in the UK. And because I wasted so much time with film school and other stuff, I was 25 by the time I graduated. I was the oldest at university. I don't know. I felt like in a way I had an advantage because I already worked. I'm not completely new to ever having had a job. I started working since I was 16. But at the same time, I was old for that type of jobs. So people would not want to hire a 25-year-old intern. And it was difficult to get a job as a 25-year-old without previous experience in that industry. And yeah, I struggled quite a bit. And what helped me was we had this exhibition, and one guy saw my portfolio and offered me a job. But the problem was it wasn't copywriting, which is what I initially wanted to do. He hired me as a designer. And I didn't know until my first day when he introduced me as everyone to the design intern. But it turned out well. I wouldn't be where I was now if it wouldn't have been for this one time where someone saw my portfolio and thought, she wants to do copywriting. She probably sucks at this, but her designs don't look that bad. Let's hire her as that. And I don't know if that was his thought process, but it wasn't easy. And I remember my dad, who was born in the 50s, just after the war finished. And he had the golden time where economy was picking up. Everyone was hiring people straight off university, straight out of school. I remember I had 2-3 months of runway of savings in the UK. And I was like, I know the worst thing that will happen is I move back in with my parents. I had this safety network. But at the same time, as a 25-year-old girl, woman, whatever, probably more like a girl, who already lived on their own, who went to study abroad, having to then move in with the parents, it's just not what I wanted. And I applied for jobs and everything. And it's been 2-3 months. And he asked me, are you even applying? What are you doing? How come that you don't find a job? And I told him, it's not just me, it's the landscape. It's, first of all, I'm not English. And I wanted to be a copywriter. It's not my first language. And second of all, I don't just compete against my university peers. I'm competing against all the people, all the students all around the world. Back then, it was also before Brexit, who can work legally in the UK. So for every little internship that you'll find, you'll have thousands, not hundreds, thousands of people applying. And he just didn't understand that it took me 2-3 months to find a job. Nowadays, 2-3 months isn't even that crazy amount of time after you finish a course or degree or university, whatever it is, to find something. So the struggle is real. And it's not just honing your skill, but it's also putting yourself out there in front of the right people. And most of the gigs that I got were either because I applied for gigs or I asked my network. But if I would have just done some work, honed my skill, and not told people that I offer UX design, how would they know what I offer? But also, do you remember how you got your first freelance gig?
My first freelance gig?
Yeah.
It was an accident. It was a complete accident.
Tell me.
I was actually had a cup of coffee yesterday with the guy who I was working for at the time. I went to work for a company called Hullabaloo, and I did quite a few years doing children's television. And I was just compositing, basically. They had a team of animators, and we were doing a show called Muddle Earth with BBC, for CBBC. And I was just sitting there with After Effects, and I was comping with two other people. We were comping the Flash animation onto Photoshop backgrounds, and we were giving them depth and doing effects and stuff over the top. And it was great. Honestly, there's about 3 jobs that I can definitely say have been my best jobs ever, that I've absolutely loved from beginning to end, and that is one of them. It was just, every day was a joy going into work. It was great. And then for one reason or another, which none of us were aware of, the company basically went bust while we were working on the project. Thankfully for us, there was the producer of the job was, he wasn't a member of staff at Hullabaloo. And he appeared like this. And at the time, I think we were all like, thank God. He appeared like this like angel, like floating down into the office. And then landing down and going, I'm going to save you all. And he basically, he was in control of all the budget. So even though the company that we were working for had gone under, and the major management people went off. He was there and said, right, okay, we've got the budget. We don't want this to fail. The BBC are paying for this. You can all stay on, but you'll have to come on as freelancers because we can't have that business. So we're just going to just get it done. But we've got all the premises, we've got access to the premises, we've got access to all the equipment. All you got to do is turn up, do the work, and it'll be great. And all of us are like, oh my God, but I like full-time work. I mean, everyone's faces were just like this. And so it went from being this full-time gig, which I think by the time we were all like, this is great. What a fantastic job. I love working here. Everyone's wonderful. It was like, oh my God, we're still working here. Everyone's still wonderful. What happens when it ends? And it was really odd because, I mean, every single one of us were kind of like, just went, well, okay, still be the same money. We can just walk away from the end. And then what do? We've got to find another job. So we knew when we were going to finish. So all of us were like starting to contact other people. And there's some people who I've done loads of work for in the past. But at this time, they were just mates who I'd known for ages. I was just contacting friends and they said, yeah, you're free to do some work for us after you finish that one. I went, yeah, I am. I ended up doing another children's TV show. And then it was like, then the guys who had done Model Earth with, they sort of reformed and become proper people. Not the original company, but the new company started pretty much on that same spot where I'd been doing Model Earth. I came on and I was brought on to do lead compositing on the show there that was called Strange Hill High, which I worked on the whole of the first series and part of the second series before I decided it was probably best to go off and do something else. So all that time, I was just like, I seemed to be bobbing from one job to the next. And obviously I was just working as a sole trader. I'm thinking, well, this is okay. And so I kept putting the money aside for the tax and I looked at the money that I had left and I'm like, this is weird. Why have I got more money than I did when I was working full time? And that was the first big revelation was, hang on a minute. I'm working less hours and I'm earning more money. This is insane. How did this happen? This is great. And that was the turning point. So before I knew it, I was like, yes, I'm a freelancer. I will do whatever you want. I have not got imposter syndrome.
Well, you don't need to know that.
Yes, don't know about that. And it's just it's that whole thing about, yes, it's harder work because you've got to work hard to get the work you've got to work hard before you even start working hard. So it is it is a difficult thing to do, but the rewards in terms of time, I'll tell you one of the best things about it as well. One of the best rewards for me, I have been in an enviable position of being able to work in lots of different companies and see lots of different pipelines of how people do things. And because of that, I know for a fact that I can put together what I believe to be the perfect pipeline because I've seen where they fail and I've seen where they excel. And pipelines change for everything. They always do, particularly in visual effects. But pipeline is the bottom line. If you've got a good pipeline and if you've got a good Python scripter, the whole job's going to be gravy. It's just going to be like a wonderful chocolatey river of perfection from the beginning to the very end.
And you're saying I'm idealistic.
Well, okay, fair enough. Apart from the occasional mistakes that pop up. But yeah, okay, I can be a bit idealistic when it comes to pipeline. But it's only because, as you will have done with clients that you've worked for and companies you've worked with, you've seen things and you know that there are certain things that you can do better. And you can do it better because you've been a freelancer and you've been in all these places and seen them all. So you can cherry pick all the little bits that you like that work and make them into your pipeline. There's a fantastic piece of software which I was introduced to, obviously by a client, called Post Haste. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's a very, very simple piece of free software. There's me and the free stuff again. It runs on Linux and it runs on Mac and it runs on PC. And what you do is you create a folder structure just on your desktop, or you can create it actually in there by saying, I want a folder, I want a standard AEP to go in here. I want a 30 frames per second AEP to go in here. I want, this is my set, or if you're doing like user interface, UX stuff, you've got this user interface, UX. You've got this sort of like setup that you have that you use on every single project, and you've got it's your base one that you know works so well. So you've got this, and you've got it in a Photoshop file, and you've got it in Illustrator, and so you just basically put this into the project structure in Post Haste, And then when you create a project, you use this setup, and you say, right, it's called this. This is the project number. This is the company. And then you click go. I say, oh, use this template I've created. You press go. And it builds you your project, your brand new clean, ready project with all the things that you store in there. So it's got all your templates and stuff that you've got ready. So it's great for if you've got a setup for Maya or for Cinema 4D, or if you've got sort of stuff, as I say, like Illustrator or Photoshop, all these things. Inkscape even, who cares? Just use whatever you can. It's in there. You like it. It works for you. Great. Get it in. And then when you create your project for a particular job, so a VFX job or whether it's for this, it's brilliant. It's like one of the biggest problems with a pipeline is not having a proper folder structure. Bonkers. It's categorically the bottom line.
There are so many things that freelancers don't think of when they start, and one of them is managing their projects. They all worry about finding the client, getting that gig, defining the rates, etc. But then once you have the client, what do you do? Oh, I'm the one who manages the project. I'm the one who has to see, oh, this is handing it over, waiting for this kind of management. Sometimes you have a project manager, sometimes you're in charge of delivering it. And folder structure is one of the things that when I do something, it's, oh my God, where is it? Back then when you had Sketch, now it's on Figma, so you just search and it's done. Whereas with Sketch, it was more difficult. But one thing I want to ask you, especially with your experience, you've seen how the industry has changed. You've seen freelancing evolve over time. If you were to start over today, first, would you still do it? And second of all, how?
Okay. If I was going to start all over again, I would still try and get a full-time job. If I was coming out of the industry today, I would want to get a full-time job rather than a freelance gig, purely because I think that in order to be able to do the freelance gig, I think it's very good to have a solid grounding in a full-time gig, because it's knowing how a business works. Because once you realize how a business works, you can then say, right, okay, I can go and work for anyone now. And also I've had a good couple of years with getting my feet under the table, comfortable, understanding ways that you use the software, because the ways that I was taught how to use this software are totally different to the way that people use this software. So I now understand this. So I know I can go away and I can get some work, possibly even for the people I just left. And that does happen quite a bit. You leave a business, but they bring you on as a freelancer because they trust you. I've got enough money to be able to buy the subscription of the software that I need. I've got a good enough machine at home. I can do this from my home and then start throwing your work at people. Absolutely, I would have done it. Absolutely. I spent how many years? Let me see. Now here's some maths. So the first job I got was 94. And I went freelance in 2000 and probably 2005. Yeah, that sounds about right, 2005. So what's that, 21 years? So I was about 21 years in full-time employment, from games firms up to working in TV. One film. That was probably, I wouldn't have spent that much time in there if I'd thought about it. Because when Alex and I left London, because Alex was pregnant and we couldn't afford to live in London with one salary coming in, it just wasn't going to happen. So I got a job up in Manchester. So I've just heard my dog's little tailnails. You probably hear them scuttling
Ginny,
around
right?
on the floor.
It was this Harry Potter
That's
name.
Ginny, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's it. It's literally how we got it. I think I would have, at the time when we left, if I thought about it, I think I probably would have gone freelance. I think the biggest problem was because obviously wife, child in the way, full-time job is the only option. That was how my brain was working at the time. I got offered a 6-month rolling contract at a firm in Bristol, which at the time I was like, I can't do that. I can't have a job where I can't know what I'm doing in 6 months' time. They might decide to get rid of me, and then what happens? But then what you don't think is that you can get employed by a full-time employer, and 6 weeks' time the company could go under. So you'd be in the same situation anyway. So I didn't think that. I just thought full-time job security. Whoo.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, everyone does. It's full-time job security. No. In fact,
I
someone I
wonder.
mentioned earlier on, David Sturzaker. Go on.
I wonder which marketing team sits behind full-time employment, because if you compare it, it's less money, it's not really much more security, and you have so many more things to do, so much more bureaucracy, and it's, I don't know, the marketing team behind full-time employment, well done.
Is there a
But please stop
marketing
lying
team
to us.
behind full-time
I
employment?
don't know. I
Is
don't
there?
know why.
I thought it's
Why
just,
does
it's like
why
you're
does
born, you get a job, you die. This is it.
yeah
That's the marketing
yeah
team.
that's
Welcome to the
exactly
world. We bring
exactly
you in, you give us all your money and do lots of work, and then you die. Bye.
yeah.
Have a good day. That's not marketing.
Well, yeah, it's the society pressure, whatever it is. But for some reason, and I grew up like this as well, get a proper job, climb up the company
Yeah.
ladder, not thinking that you would be much happier, more successful. Well, it's not a fact that you will be more successful, but you can be your own boss. You can make all of these decisions for yourself if you're freelance.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's a scam. Don't go. Start with
It
a full-time
is.
employment. Start with it, learn from it, and then go freelance.
Run away from it. Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. There is. It does feel like, I just love fun. Who's behind marketing full-time jobs? It's great. Never thought of it that way, but it is the brilliant way of looking at it. Why do we do this to ourselves? I think that the days of massive companies has gone, and also the days of everyone working in a big office, no matter how people try to make it happen, has also gone. You know, there's lots of businesses that are now trying to get people to come back into the office. Come back into the office. But really and truly, if you're a solid worker and you're not going to sit on your backside and do nothing all day, and I have seen this happen. I have seen people who are remote, and you wonder what they're doing and why the mouse isn't moving on their screen when they should be working, because they're being monitored from the office. Oh, yes. You've got to keep working. But, you know, this is so with this run of like no one going into an office, everyone working from home, which has been, you know, was unthinkable and now has become like this fantastic norm. And then therefore, so less office space is required. And also it means that, you know, as I said, companies are a lot smaller, and the amount of freelance, I mean, the mere thought of visual effects artists being able to work on films in their own homes, unthinkable. That will never happen. COVID. Everyone stay at home. Everyone stay at home. And it just means they haven't got to pay for the large office space. So the future, I think, particularly with VFX and stuff, is, you know, small office, probably got a big render farm with AWS. You know, just somewhere in an Amazon warehouse, there will be a big load of machines that do all the hard work. You remote into a bunch of machines that are in the office. So you've got all this stuff. So everyone's basically remote logs in, and they're in front of their own machine, but they're at home. And so they're not actually accessing any of the files directly. They can't get to them. They can't send files anywhere. It's more secure now than it was when people were working in the offices, if you're working remote. You know, working as a freelancer now is, personally, I bloody well love it. I do. I absolutely love it. The only reason I think I really went full-time was, first of all, they asked me 3 times before I said yes. But was because I just thought maybe now I need the security of a full-time job. And there's something to be said for that security. But as you said, it's like, really? That's secure? No.
Well,
No.
to be fair, you do get maternity, paternity leave, which you wouldn't get as a freelancer. And in case the company makes you redundant, you do get benefits as well.
Interestingly, on the score about paternity leave, and this I think is a really good point to freelancers who do creative jobs, where they sit on their bum and they sit in front of a keyboard. Yeah. If you work for yourself, and there is something about paternity leave, it sounds great, and maternity leave. I've got 2 children. You know, I did a little bit of pat leave. Alex was off for the prescribed period of time, looking after our 2 fantastic children. And one of my old bosses said to me when I was freelancing, said, "Can you do me a favor? Can you please cover for Sarah, his wife?" She said she's about to give birth, and she's really concerned that all the projects she's currently working on, because she's a freelancer, they're all going to end up, you know, she won't be able to do them because she's got all the looking after the baby. And I went, "Oh yeah, sure." So I know Sarah for ages, so I just went round and she taught me through all the projects and stuff, and it was all After Effects, and I knew what she knew. I know how she works. I knew the project people that she was working with, so that was great. So it wasn't like it was a hardship. And then I said, so hang on, so what are you going to be doing? Well, I'm working on these things. She went, well, obviously I'm looking after the baby. I said, you do realise, because I'd had 2 kids at this point, they hadn't had any. And I said, you do realise that all that child is going to do is going to be sitting in a baby bouncer next to you. It's all it'll do. You can work, and if you need to go and change a nappy, it's the same as if you're going to refill a cup of coffee. You just go and do it, and you come back and you carry on. They're the most portable, easiest things in the world to look after. So the thing about having a baby is theoretically, yeah, you're going to have late nights and stuff. But the thing is that you get your partner. Here I am. Well, not yours, but you know what I mean. I'm the partner. Yeah, they do all the night shifts, and then you do all the day shifts. And that worked out brilliantly. So if Molly or Eve cried in the middle of the night, I'd go downstairs with the baby over my shoulder. I'd get the sterilised bottles. I'd fill up the milk. I'd feed the baby, and then I'd put them back. And I'd just get back to bed, and I'll be out. So Alex basically was able to do stuff during the day. And Sarah said, oh, no, I'm going to be knackered. And I went, you think? I said, well, look, honestly, give it a go, see what you think. And in the end, I didn't have to do anything. She just did it all. Because she realised, same as I said, that it's not difficult to look after a baby at the same time. And, and also, a bit of family always help as well, always help out. If you're not too far away from them, of course. And that's not me being, from a masculine, like big man perspective, women will be fine. It's literally, partnership, you work together and you can do it. But it also means that you can still earn that money. You'll still earn the big bucks when you're freelancing because it's not hard to do it when you're at home. You're not going into somebody else's office. You're working from home. So the baby is literally it's not like you've got to stick it in a nursery or something. It's actually, you are the nursery, but you're still the full-time person. You can still be that amazing person at your work, but you now have a small child resting over your shoulder, which you're doing this with constantly.
I think that really depends. I don't have children. I don't know if I will. I'm not planning, but never say never. But I think it would be incredibly hard to work and being distracted. Well, I don't know if it's just a baby, maybe it's not that bad. But once it starts running, once it starts talking, I think that's going to be trickier.
That's when you go to nursery. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have to be very lucky with the baby that it's not a screaming baby. Or you never know.
My experience is that they all do a bit of that.
Yeah, a bit of that. But if it's but I don't know. I'm not a parent. All of the people I met who had children, they cry a lot, but then maybe it's not actually as much. But you also don't know what to compare it to because you don't know what's a normal amount of screaming.
Yeah. I know this is nothing to do with what we're talking about, but literally the prime example of this is Alex and I. Molly had just been born. I had driven our little 2-seater car that we had at the time. We got rid of that very quickly. A little 2-seater car, and I'd driven to the hospital, and because Alex was in there for 2 or 3 days, and to pick up Alex and pick up Molly. Got the car seat out of the back of the bit. Got her in the car seat, and we're walking away from the hospital, going, "Is anyone going to take this? What have we got to take it away now? Have we? You have no idea what you're doing. You haven't got a clue what you're doing. You're just thrust into this world of having this small, pink, screaming thing that poos, and it's just like, I should have had a pet dog, I can tell them what to do. And you have to, every part of it is a total, it's like freelancing. You get thrown into the deep end and hopefully you survive.
Just to wrap up this conversation, there are 3 questions I always ask my guests. And one of them is, would you ever go back to a permanent job?
Yes, I would. But it had to be the right job and have to be the right amount of money.
I think that would be tricky to cover both.
Probably the reason why it'll never happen. But if it was if someone turned around to me and said, this is what I need you to do, and I still had the opportunity to learn and do new things, as well as do the stuff that I already do, then I think I'd probably, I might just bite the hand off, quite frankly. But I love freelancing. Yeah.
I would not be able to go back. Never say never. You never know. Maybe there is this perfect company.
Exactly.
You never know.
Or you start your own big business and you start employing people. Yes.
Well, then you kind of become an agency. So yeah, if you could go back in time to, let's say, the person who was doing bar jobs because fresh out of uni, and you couldn't continue doing visual effects, you couldn't there was no software, you didn't have a laptop under the table. If you go back to that time, what would you now tell your younger self?
Oh, Dean. See, I've thought about this a few times, and now I'm thinking. I think. I mean, don't give up. Don't give up. Have faith. You will get work. Would be one of the things I would say, and the other one that I would say would be run. Run as fast as you can. Do not turn around. Do not look back. Run.
Run from what?
Everything that's happened. In terms of, work's been amazing, but it's also been, there are times when it's been absolutely atrocious. I've seen people around me doing work, practically killing themselves to get things completed. And, it's when you see, sometimes there are certain parts of certain industries which can be never the nicest things. There's always going to be something. There's going to be someone, or there's going to be, in whichever industry you're in, whether you're freelancing or full time, there's always something that you will always strive to not let happen, but will always happen. There'll always be someone who'll work far too hard. There'll always be someone who will take advantage of you for as much as they possibly can. I think in the freelance economy, sometimes that happens a bit more. But the joy of the freelance one, of course, which I actually maybe not run, don't run too fast. Maybe slow down a bit. Maybe look behind your shoulder. Maybe stop. Maybe turn around, run back. But it is kind of that whole thing of, it's tough, but it's so rewarding. Freelancing.
Yes.
It is so rewarding. I have seen so many different places. I have, in terms of working places, I've developed skills which I didn't think I was capable of having. I've still got that imposter syndrome about myself, and I will always have that because I think it's a very keen skill. Everybody has to have it. Run. But at the same time, do look behind you every now and again. It's a tough question. All right, okay, let me start again. Let's just say you just asked me the question.
So what would you tell yourself?
I would say keep at it. If I walked it, I would go back in time, make the time machine, go back and look at myself standing in the pub. I'd like to see, first of all, how I look. A lot younger, a lot happier, less hairy, a lot thinner. God, I was a lot thinner. I think I'd want to say carry on with the pub work, but I think I'd probably say, stick at it, keep your mind busy, keep yourself fit, but don't let your dreams vanish away from you. Because at that point, the dreams really were for a full-time job, working either for a games company or working on a film, and the film stuff didn't come till later. But it was worth the wait. And I think it's going to be a tough journey, and you're going to end up working some ridiculously stupid hours, and you're going to see some friends who basically will fall by the wayside because of how difficult it is. But just keep pushing at it, because at some point, like I have now, you'll stop and you'll look back, and with very fresh eyes, you'll go, bloody hell, did I really do all that? That's amazing. And that's the thing. I'll be honest with you. I think as I said, there are 3 jobs that I've worked on which have been fantastic. One was a show called Model Earth. One was a Disney show called Evermore, which we did in like 3 weeks, all the visual effects for like 7 episodes. Wow. And it was all done in After Effects. And it was and there were 3 of us doing it. One of them was a visual supervisor, and me and a guy called Jay. And we just sat there and we had fun. And we worked 9 to 5. And we got it all done. And it was great. There was everything just flowed. Jay was also just a genius. It was just a great job. And the other one was a show which is on Curiosity Stream now, called Speed, which I did here in Manchester. And I look at everything I did on that, and I did a lot of drawing. And I hadn't done that much drawing before. Basically, I've done drawing all my life, but I've never done it for work. I've always done lots of motion graphics and stuff. And it was all pretty much motion graphics. But we were using After Effects. I create the camera rig, So you move the point of where the camera is pointing at, but then all the rotation and the yaw and the pitch is all completely separate. So you could say, I want to look from here to here, but I want the camera to spin and do this all the way between those 2 points. So it's always looking roughly here, but it's going, I could twist it here. And then if I wanted to change it, I could just adjust the twist without changing anything else. So it was just like, I'm now going to pitch it higher. Oh, bring it lower. Okay, right. So we were doing things really quickly and getting work done. And it was all 4K. And this is before people were really going overboard with 4K. And it was just so much fun. I haven't drawn so much since, I don't think. And I look at it now and I just go, that was great. So it's one of those fantastic memory jobs, which everybody has. Whenever I go and see these guys, because I pop in every now and again. Got any documentary work coming up? I'd love to help out on that. All that speed stuff we did, bloody loved that. Do some more of that. And they're always saying, well, we've got so much visual effects work going on, Gary. And then all the work for Castrol, and you're like, oh, okay. All right, I'll do that. Pay me.
But it's super nice when you have these projects and clients that you're very happy that you worked with and that you're proud of as well. That even years later, you're like,
exactly,
this was a great project. Okay, the last question. If 5 years from now, or when did you say you would retire?
Well, probably about 67. So what's that, 13 years from now?
Okay, so that's still quite a bunch. So if your future self, let's say when you retired, whatever your life is going to be then, you will relax, you'll have some time with your family, maybe you have grandchildren, I don't know how old your kids are, or like maybe not, whatever it might be. What do you think your future self would tell you today?
Yes. What was that? What would I say to me now for my old self? Look after your knees. Do a bit less hill walking, and you can look back. You'll be able to. Yeah, I think I'd probably say, do you know what? Everything you did before and everything you've done since that point when you were talking to Elisabeth, every time since, it's all been worth it. It's all been worth it. You will leave a small mark somewhere in the world where someone will possibly remember you. That would be nice. Just someone to go, oh yeah, that was done by Gary Noden. Yeah. He started that company, didn't he? Yeah. Or, oh yeah, Gary Noden. Yeah, he really changed, him and John Stopforth really changed the way the education system deals with students and gets them jobs in the industry. Yeah, that Gary Noden. Hey, he was good at it, wasn't he? Yeah, he was. Yeah. Like not fame, not infamy, but a little bit like you're gonna be remembered. Carry on. You're doing all right.
Or maybe someone saying,
hopefully.
Oh, remember he's been Nodened?
Yes. Do you remember when you got Nodened by Noden?
Maybe that's what you're going to be known for. Well,
we're known for, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Terrible. That's almost as bad as one of my jokes. Well done.
You're welcome. I've lived in the UK long enough to make those bad jokes. Well, thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this. If any of the listeners want to learn more about you, and the thing is, we didn't even talk about your Discord channel, how you help the students, all of this kind of stuff. I'll try to squeeze as much of that info into the intro as well. If anyone wants to learn more about you and about what you're doing, where can they find you? I have a website called, and it's very important that people type this in correctly, it's Gen-VFX. You don't want to put it in wrong. Someone's been using it for something else and it's not safe for work. So Gen, okay. GEN-VFX.com. That's me, not the other side. And then also I am on Twitter at GENoden, so at GENODEN. I'm also on LinkedIn, which is probably a good place. Obviously, I'm on Juno, because otherwise I wouldn't have met this lovely person in front of me. And you can also get in contact with me via Discord. Myself and my fellow colleague in the podcast, we run a Discord server called the Grafters Podcast Server. And on that, we get students and industry people to talk. And also, we've started to work up a very, very small job section at the minute. So the idea being that some of the students
can do work within industry. And we're doing a project as well, John and I are, which will be using more students as well. A little bit further down the line. I'm generally around somewhere. If you come and knock on the door, I'll be in, probably. Seeing as I'm a freelancer.
I'll add all these links in the show notes. And yeah, thank you again so much for your time. This was super, super nice. I completely understand the comfort sofa analogy, because that's what I feel like. I just miss my coffee. And yeah, I hope the listeners feel the same. Thank you so much.
I hope so. I mean, as I say, the person that you've been listening to is the person who is. This is me in the chair, and people say, it's nice. I've got a friend, very quickly, and I promise I'll leave you alone. I have a friend. I really do. And wow. He says to me, I know, so believe it, I can't believe it myself. I've got an actual friend. And he says to me, he likes to listen to the podcast because it's like just having a conversation with me. And that's nice, because I know that I know when the things he'll be laughing at, because my references don't get any. I still try and learn new software, but my references are still very old. Well, I need to make more references with AI.
Well, the thing is how you see it. It's better to, the thing is, it's not going to be AI that replaces you. It's going to be someone who uses AI. So the earlier you adapt to it, the earlier you adapt to it, the better. Well, thank you so much.
Anyways, thank you so much.
Have a lovely day.
And you too.
Thank you.
Enjoy your evening, and I will hopefully speak to you at some point again soon. This has been delightful. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation with Gary, and you might have noticed that simply based on the length of this episode. I'm adding all the links about Gary in the description of this podcast. If you're interested in motion graphics, I also highly recommend to join his Discord channel. If you like this episode, please leave a review and hit the follow button. This helps the Freelance Blueprint get suggested to more freelancers like you. And feel free to share this episode with anyone you think can benefit from listening. That's all from me, and I can't wait to have you join again next week. Have a good day. Bye.